I never wanted to leave my home country. No matter how bad things got, no matter how difficult life became, I always believed that home was where I truly belonged. I loved my country, I loved my family, and most of all I loved her, my girlfriend. Even when life pushed us to the edge, I never once thought of leaving. After graduating, I spent 8 exhausting months searching for a job. 8 months of rejection, of hopelessness, of watching my parents struggle every single day. My father had already lost his job, and then my mother fell seriously ill. The medical bills kept piling up, and we were forced to use every last bit of our savings just to get her the treatment she needed. But it wasn't enough. We had nothing left. We took out bank loans, borrowed money from friends, did whatever we could just to keep going. The stress of debt, the fear of losing my mother, the shame of not being able to support my family, it all weighed on me. Some nights I could hear my parents whispering in the next room, worrying about how we would survive the next month. And yet I held on, because through all of it, I still had one thing that kept me going: my girlfriend. No matter how bad things got, I believed that as long as she was by my side, I could get through anything. But I was wrong. At first she was there, she supported me, she listened to me, but as time went on, things changed. She started distancing herself, she stopped calling as often, she stopped checking in on me, and then, one day, she stopped talking to me completely. I tried to reach out, to ask what was wrong, to understand why she was pulling away, but she gave me no answers, just silence. It crushed me. I had lost my job, I had lost my savings, I had lost my peace of mind, and now I was losing her too. At that point I was desperate. With no job, no money, and no stability, I had no choice but to take whatever work I could find. That's when I started doing intense labor work, working in 40-degree heat under the burning sun, hauling bricks, carrying cement bags and digging under the scorching sky. It was exhausting, brutal work, and for all that effort, I barely made $100 a month. $100 a month. It wasn't even enough to cover our monthly rent, let alone food, bills, or my mother's medicines. Every day felt like a battle I was losing. My hands were covered in blisters, my body ached from the back-breaking labor, and the heat would leave me dizzy and gasping for air. But I kept going. I had to. Then, after what felt like an eternity of struggle, I finally caught a break. I got a job at a multinational company. A real job. A chance to finally stand on my own feet, to start repaying our debts, to bring some stability back into my family's life. For the first time in a long time, I had hope. But just 1 week after I started, I got an email that would change everything. A close friend had secretly applied for my admission to a university in Melbourne, and somehow I had been accepted, with a 10% scholarship. At first I didn't take it seriously. Why would I? I finally had what I had been fighting for: a job, a way to support my family. But when I told my parents, everything changed. They saw it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a way for me to escape, to build a future in a place where I wouldn't have to struggle like we had. My aunt even agreed to sponsor my tuition fees, and suddenly my parents were pushing me to go, but I still didn't want to. I had finally started rebuilding my life. I had responsibilities, I had a job. I had fought too hard to get where I was, but no one saw it that way. My friends told me I was being foolish. My family insisted I would regret staying behind. And then came the final blow. My girlfriend told me I should go too. Not because she wanted the best for me. Not because she thought it was a good opportunity, but because she didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore. She had already pulled away, but this time she made it clear there was no future for us. She wanted me to leave. She didn't care if I stayed or went. She had moved on. That was the moment I broke. I had spent my whole life believing in love, in family, in loyalty, but in that moment I felt like none of it mattered. The people I loved had already let go of me. No one wanted me to stay, and so I left. Not because I wanted to, not because I had a dream of studying abroad, not because I believed it was the right decision, but because I had lost hope. I had lost everything: my security, my stability, my relationship, and my sense of belonging. Even then, leaving wasn't easy. I didn't have the money to afford my plane ticket. I had to take out another loan. This time, just to leave, just to escape, just to go to a place I never even wanted to go. And now, after spending time in Australia, I often ask myself, did I make the right choice? And the truth is, I don't think I did. Looking back, I realized that my decision wasn't based on logic. It wasn't a carefully thought-out plan for my future. It was an emotional reaction to heartbreak, to pressure, to the feeling of having no other choice. I left because I felt like if I didn't, I would be stuck in a place where I had already lost everything. But in the end, leaving didn't make anything better. It only left me feeling more lost than ever. I regret coming to Australia, not because it isn't a good place, but because I never wanted to be here in the first place. I made a decision that wasn't truly mine, and now I live with the consequences. Sometimes we think we are making the best decision for our future, only to realize later that we were just running away from our emotions. And now I am left wondering, was it really worth it? When I stepped off the plane in Australia, I wasn't arriving with excitement or hope for a fresh start. I wasn't here chasing a dream or looking for a better life. I came here carrying a weight so heavy it felt like my shoulders could collapse under it at any moment. I had left my home country not because I wanted to, but because I was pushed to. I left behind my family, my struggles, my responsibilities, and the love of my life, only to land in a place where I had no idea how I was going to survive. People say moving abroad is a new beginning, a chance to build a better future, but for me, it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like the aftermath of a storm, like I had just survived one disaster only to be thrown into another. The burden of debt and family responsibility back home. My family was still drowning in debt. The loans we had taken out to survive, to pay for my mother's medical bills, to keep food on the table, all of it still needed to be repaid. And even though I had left, the responsibility hadn't disappeared. If anything, it had grown heavier. I was now in a foreign country with no financial backup, no savings, and no stable income. But I knew that my family was expecting me to earn and send money back home as soon as possible. They had sacrificed everything to send me here. We had borrowed money just to buy my ticket. I still remember sitting in that aeroplane seat, staring out of the window, knowing that every single dollar spent to get me here was another dollar we didn't have. I was supposed to be the one who would fix everything. That pressure never left my mind, not for a single second. The pain of a broken heart, but it wasn't just financial pressure that I carried with me to Australia. I had come here with a heart that wasn't just broken, it was shattered. The one person I thought would always be by my side had slowly drifted away from me. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I told myself she was just busy, that she was dealing with her own struggles, that things would go back to normal. But I was wrong. Day by day, she called me less. She stopped asking how I was, stopped checking in on me. And then, one day, she just stopped talking to me completely. No message, no explanation, just silence. And when I finally confronted her, hoping that maybe there was still something left to save, she told me what I had feared the most. She didn't want to have anything to do with me anymore. She wanted me to leave, not because she thought it would be good for me, not because she wanted me to have a better life. She just wanted to move on. And in that moment, I realized I had been holding on to something that didn't exist anymore. She had already let go of me. That was the final blow. The moment I knew there was nothing left for me in my home country, and so, with a heavy heart and no reason to stay, I boarded that plane and left. The fear of surviving in a foreign country, but arriving in Australia, didn't erase my problems, it only added new ones. The moment I stepped into this new country, I was already behind. I had no money, no job, no support system. All I had was a student visa, a university degree to study for, and the overwhelming fear of how I was going to make ends meet. People talk about the excitement of moving abroad, about the opportunities, the freedom, but no one tells you about the nights you spend lying awake in bed, wondering how you're going to pay rent. No one tells you about the fear of running out of money, of not being able to afford food, of not knowing if you'll find a job before your bank account hits zero. No one tells you about the loneliness, the feeling of being completely on your own, with no one to lean on, no one to turn to when things get tough. I had come to Australia with a weight so heavy it felt like I couldn't breathe. A degree to complete, a job to find, a family to support, a heart to heal, and no room to fail. I didn't have the luxury of taking my time to adjust or figure things out. I needed to start working immediately. It didn't matter what kind of job it was. I just needed something, anything, that would help me survive. But soon I would come to realize that finding a job in Australia as an international student was much harder than I had imagined. The rejection, the struggle, the feeling of being invisible, it was unlike anything I had ever faced before. And that is the story for the next video. Next time I will talk about how Australia treated me, the hardships I faced, the jobs I desperately searched for, and the reality of being an international student with no money and no direction. Because getting here was only the beginning. The real struggle was just about to start.